Here we go again. Welcome back to Comic Books and Cold Ones. We are the beer podcast with a comic book problem. If you like talking all things comic books and drinking all things beer, you have come to the right place because that's all we do. A little bit different show today. We have interview. We're not talking so much about superhero comics, but in any event, we'll get to that in a little bit. My name is K-Mac. I am one half of your hosts, and today I am joined by, he has his own name. I have some different names, though. So we'll start with my names. This is what I was thinking. I was thinking Yek2K for Y2J, right?
Okay.
Let's go. Okay. Thinking Big Yek Stud.
No, that's on the nose, yeah.
Doesn't really apply. And I was like, more appropriately, Yek Kong Bundy.
always good because
but no I have one more
okay
one more Junk Yek Dog. That's a pretty good one. I like that one.
JYD the original JYD.
Mm-hmm.
Always one of my favorite top 5 of my wrestlers of all time.
Yeah.
Probably JYD.
One of the best walk-up songs. Grab them cakes.
Yep. His own personal song on the WWE WWF album. Yeah.
Yep, it was a good one.
Doesn't care what it takes.
No.
Just grab them
That's
cakes.
all he does is grabbing them cakes.
So this is the high flying, jet plane riding, no hard times podcast that you're listening to today.
Oh.
So the excitement, we will be interviewing Ed Kuehnel. You do it for me.
Ed Kuehnel. Ed Kuehnel.
What is he famous for that we're going to be interviewing him for?
Famous for many things. Super famous guy. You've probably already heard of him, so I don't really need to go through all of this, but he is one of the co-creators and writers of the comic book Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, and we're excited to have him on today. But before we have him on, we have some formalities, don't we?
Yes. And if you like what you're listening to and all those good things, you can email us at cbcopodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on X Twitter at cbco_podcast. And like us off the top rope with our pictures on Instagram, comicbooks_cold ones.
Yes. Give us the people's elbow of comments. That doesn't make any sense, but either way, do that. Stun us.
Deliver us the people's elbow in the comment section.
Yes.
There.
Stun us with your comments.
Yes.
Do we have
Jackknife pile drive us?
Jackknife pile drive us. Yeah, spike pile drive us with your comments. So do we have a shout out for today?
I do not know if we do or not.
Do not know? So I think we have a shout out. Specifically, we had a download of our last episode from Ho Chi Minh City. Shout out to you, listener in Ho Chi Minh City. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
In Vietnam.
The capital.
Yeah, the capital. So heck yeah. So
I don't know of any Vietnamese beer. I'm sure there's very good Vietnamese beers, but I don't know.
There probably is. There's Pasture Street Brewing Company, which I've found in multiple locations to be the brewery you need to visit when you're in Ho Chi Minh City.
Now, I know they're famous for having liquor with a cobra in it.
Really?
Do you think they have a beer with a cobra in it?
Well, then of course they would, right?
Would you drink a beer with a cobra in it?
That's going to be a pretty big beer, right? To fit a cobra in it.
It's going to be a double oil can tall boy, I assume.
Then sure, yeah, definitely.
Or
if it's enough beer. Oh, baby cobra.
Baby cobra. The babies are more venomous than the adults, they say.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because they can't control their venom.
Oh, interesting. They have as much venom as an adult?
Yeah, and they can't control it.
Really?
That's what I've heard.
Were there any wrestlers who were nicknamed the Cobra?
I
Probably.
don't know. There was one wrestler that's famous for drinking beer, though.
Yeah, and nicknamed the Rattlesnake.
Yes. or there was Jake the Snake.
There was Jake the Snake. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Close enough, right? That fits our needs here for this show.
Andre the Giant drinking sessions are epic.
They are.
Yeah. So at one time, often consuming 100 beers in a single sitting.
Yeah, there's a Ric Flair story with
famous
Andre the
feats.
Giant.
Famous feats: 119 beers in 6 hours at a Pennsylvania pub. 12-ounce beers. 119. 108 beers in 45 minutes. Hulk Hogan stated this.
Mm-hmm.
156 beers in one setting.
Reported by Mike Graham.
Yeah, Mike Graham claimed to have witnessed this. 106 beers in a night. Ric Flair reported that was from Andre the Giant. And I remember there's one where he drank like a case of wine and then proceeded to the beers.
Yeah, I remember that one too. Did you watch the documentary on HBO?
I have not. No.
Yeah, that they talked about that a lot. Like he was in such pain from his, condition that that alcohol was really the only thing that could help him at that point. Considering wrestlers don't have great health insurance plans.
This is true, but there's no better health insurance and painkiller than beer, as we know here. And we'll be discussing more of killing some pain in some post-match needs while we discuss our comic book with our guest.
Yes. And without further ado, introducing to the Comic Books and Cold Ones podcast, hailing from Portland, Oregon, height unknown, weight unknown, Ed Kuehnel. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thank you very much. I feel like we should do this. Like one of the reasons I Playboy Buddy Rose was one of my favorite wrestlings growing up. So if you were to say from Portland, Oregon, weighing 280 pounds, Ed Kuehnel, go ahead.
From Portland, Oregon, weighing 280 pounds, Ed Kuehnel.
So Playboy Buddy Rose would get angry at the announcer, Don Owen. He'd grab the microphone and he'd say, like, "That's 273 pounds." He'd be all angry. It was a great bit. It was a great bit. But yes, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's I really appreciate it.
Of course, and so we're here to talk about your book, Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, which Nick and I have had the opportunity to read, and we really enjoyed.
Awesome.
Before we actually can chat, we have to give ourselves some liquid courage here to really dive deep into the nuances that are Invasion for Wrestletopia, the postmodern critiques that I have of it, and the let's say Aristotelian ethics that are covered by interplanetary species engaged in wrestling.
Right. I was really surprised how it mirrored my own life, to be honest.
Really? That's great. I am fascinated to hear.
Well, should we lead the way, Ed, with your beer here that you want to start off with, and tell us a little bit about it, the brewery, and maybe how it's inspiring this discussion?
Well, let's see. So I picked 3 local breweries here to Portland, Oregon, where maybe the name of the beer had some possible tie-in to a wrestler. It was kind of difficult, but I think I did all right. I have my first beer is from Breakside Brewery in Portland. It's a hazy India Pale Ale, and the art on the can has like a kraken tentacle. And it says, or the name of the beer is What Rough Beast.
Oh, nice.
So do we want to give away the tie-in to the wrestler, or is that like we want to keep that a mystery?
Go ahead.
You tell us.
Well, I just remembered Beast from the East. Bam Bam Bigelow, who I loved, when I was a kid. I have a Bam Bam Bigelow T-shirt I almost wore, but it is one of my favorite beers from one of my favorite breweries, and so that's the tie-in. There is also the Gigantic Brewing Company, and I have one of their IPAs here. They just call it Gigantic IPA, but it's more of like a Pacific Northwest or West Coast IPA, which I really like. Those are kind of my favorite beers overall. And, Gigantic, I mean, that has a couple tie-ins to wrestlers of old, but I thought of Giant Baba, who I think is pretty old school. He was former NWA champion. I think he had like 2 title reigns. I think he beat Harley Race in Japan, maybe Ric Flair. Might have been Harley Race 2 times, but it was like he was a huge star in Japan. And the NWA wanted him to have, wanted the Japanese fans to see him get the world belt, and then he would come to the States and give it back to Harley Race, So he's an interesting sort of footnote in wrestling history. And then, though, this is my favorite. It's my favorite brewery in Portland. It's called Level Beer, and they're newer, but they're growing, and they're distributed in Oregon, Washington, and I think Idaho pretty soon. And this is their Game On India Pale Ale. And it's really delicious. They have a couple bars around Portland where they have food carts, and you can get really good food while you drink your Level Beer. So Game On, of course, I thought of the game, Triple H, time to play the game, and
right.
So that's what I got.
Nice.
That's what I got, and I'm gonna
Now you mentioned you have a Bam Bam Bigelow T-shirt, but do you have a Bam Bam Bigelow tattoo on your head, or did the wife?
No, I haven't. She as far as she knows, I have no tattoos on my skull underneath my hair. He was so cool, though. I remember him when he broke onto the scene with the WWF, as it was called at the time, and he was just immediately over. And he was just this giant guy, but who was fast and could do drop kicks and jump off the top rope. And legend has it, McMahon was really high on him, wanted to give him let him beat Hogan and have a title run, possibly, but his knees gave out on him. He had injuries and got sidelined, and so it didn't happen. But
I remember the hype when he first came to WWF. He was coming in as a heel, supposedly, so all the different managers were competing to get his services, and then he actually came in as a face and tricked everybody, and it was it was very surprising. Yeah, it was a really cool little trick they did there, because you expect him to be a heel based on how he looks.
Yeah,
at least in the late '80s.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't remember that part because he was such a menacing. Had such a menacing look about him. I think I just, this is a long time ago now. So I think looking back on it, just always assumed he was a heel. But you're right. I think he was this. That's probably why McMahon was considering him for a title run, is because he wanted baby faces to have the belt. I think more than heels for sure. And but he liked the baby faces that were sort of he liked people that were over, but like even Hogan's a little bit of an anti-hero, a little bit, at least when he first started, before he got to the prayers and the vitamins and
and knees going to prevent you from being a champion is a theme. So I can see the things running through that. Those old man knees keep you from achieving certain things. So
they do.
Yeah.
They sure do. Oh, so Yak, do you want to go ahead with your beer? All right. So we're going to try something new here. We're going to do some walk up music for the beers here. So I'll start start with your walk up music.
So in honor
Chills.
of the Nature Boy, I have from Kushwa Brewing out of Maryland. It's a New England style DIPA made with all Citra hops by Kushwa Brewing. A little beer called Face Chop. In honor of all the great chops I reviewed online. And I remember Ric Flair had was considered the greatest of the chops. Other great choppers were The Big Show, of course, Kenta Kobashi, who I never really got to see wrestle because he's a Japanese famous wrestler, Chris Benoit, and also the home skater from Wahoo McDaniels himself, who took to Ric Flair, known for his chops. So in honor of all those great choppers, I'm drinking the Space Chop. So it's a interesting beer. I'm not always the biggest Citra fan, so I'll see how well it goes because they make me pucker up too much because that's
yeah,
very acidic.
Yes.
Yeah, same thing with me. Citra's good, but too much Citra is hard to deal with sometimes.
You have to take a couple Tums in advance. Like if you know you're drinking some of that, just take a couple Tums first, and then it'll make a difference.
On the benefit side, mosquitoes will not bite you because it's the same thing they use for citronello.
It's a good reason to drink it.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. And I thought you were going to have maybe figure 4 leg lock beer, but
I high and low at the Total Wine for anything. And the first thing I saw that was Space Chop, I was like, well, that's probably going to be it. I don't have to take too many laps around here. Just thinking of all the good slaps that I've seen over the years. And I was like, definitely. One of my favorite moves in wrestling would be it's not a finishing move, per se, but, just an in-game move, by far awesome.
Yeah.
That you could do to your friends. That was always awesome.
Yes. You can also do the eye poke, too, and then the get on your knees and do the groin shot.
Yes.
Your friends love that. Friends love the groin shot.
Groin shot beer. Groin shot IPA.
There we go. Trademark.
New brewery ready to happen now.
Yeah, it was, a little tricky to find like a wrestling themed beer, at least for me. But I'll go ahead and talk about mine here after it gets its walk up. All right, so my beer is out of El Segundo Brewing Company in El Segundo, California.
I think I know this one.
It is Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA.
Oh, okay.
Somehow I found it here in Tampa. I did not expect to do that.
That's a good one. I didn't know he had his own beer. That's well done.
Yeah, so he has. There's an IPA and a lager. Now, this IPA is 6.7 ABV, Cascade, Chinook, and Citra hops again. So, Tums all around for everyone. And apparently he designed this beer with El Segundo. But yeah, I've never had it before. I'm looking forward to it. KMAC 316 means I just drank your beer.
Now, as the lover of Bud Heavy, probably the last one on the planet, do you think Stone Cold really does like IPAs? Or as he got older, and he was like, more kind, and he's like, my palate.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he probably sticks to the lager. That's what I think.
Yeah. But the IPAs are, they're insanely popular. So maybe he's just, he knows how to draw money, right? He knows what the people like.
Well, I can see him going to a barbecue now and be like, Budweiser's so out of touch. You need to get an IPA. And he's like, I'll do that. Coming in, foaming everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna have two of them and smash them together, but it's just way too expensive.
Yeah, he's got a leather vest with a collar on it now, and
a little tie.
A little tie.
Hipster mustache.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Shaved off his goatee.
Hipster Steve Austin.
Yeah, but I didn't expect to find this here in Tampa. I've never had it before. So they were selling Hulk Hogan's Real American beer on clearance everywhere this weekend.
Yeah, I did see that, and I noticed it somewhere. And then a friend of mine, she said, like, well, I have one of my friends is involved in that company, or is going to help set up his appearance in Portland. So, he's has left behind a complicated legacy. Hogan did, but I thought, man, I still gotta get like a picture and an autograph of the Hulkster, and it never happened. But he was doing appearances on behalf of that beer all over the country, and never made it to Portland. But I wasn't as excited about the beer as I was.
Right. I can appreciate that.
Be around the Hulkster.
Yeah, they had an entire pallet of it they were bringing into the liquor store when I was there. I was like, oh, maybe. No, I don't really.
Yeah, brewed with some complications.
Yeah. Yeah, there's too much prayers and vitamins in that beer for me.
Right. All right, let's crack these open and get talking comic books.
Yeah.
All right.
And wrestling. Cheers.
Game on.
So let's pour these here. The book we're discussing today, Invasion, Planet Wrestletopia. My one-line statement about it is, a down-and-out champ becomes Earth's last defense for a championship in an homage to wrestling classics all over. The great golden age, all the way, as kind of centerpiece, but all the ages of wrestling are represented into it. So just, if you want to tell us what inspired you to, for what I said, we read the afterwards, and it looked like you guys really, really, really liked wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 53. I came of age really in the 80s, but I started watching wrestling in the late 70s, before cable, because Portland, Oregon we had NWA territory. It's, a lot of people are familiar with the old territory days of wrestling. It was a regional affair, local affair. So on my local, one of my local TV stations, I could watch Portland wrestling, NWA franchise, and I could see wrestlers like Roddy Piper, who I actually don't remember him too much in Portland wrestling, but he became. He wasn't the first place he ever wrestled, but he became a big star. He really launched his career in Portland, and he ended up being very loyal to the promoters there. And he lived in a Portland area like his whole life. Like I met his daughters.
I didn't know that.
Met his daughters a couple. Yeah. He lived in a suburb called Aloha, and I've met his widow, Kitty, and I met, I don't know them, but I've met them, a couple of his daughters, two of his daughters, and they're still around, the area. Kitty, his Piper is her ring name. She wrestles in local indie promotions around town. But anyway, so I could watch a lot of these guys who, passed through Portland or came up through Portland. Jesse Ventura, Jimmy Snuka wrestled there for a while. Playboy Buddy Rose. Growing up, that's why I think he was my favorite. Is I just was a kid watching wrestling, and he was a huge deal in Portland. He was a heel, almost always a heel, and he was usually almost always the main heel. And he was just he was funny, but he was a good heel. Good storyteller, and I just, like a lot of people around Portland, I just sort of glommed onto him as being my favorite. It's like he had that local sort of tie-in for me growing up. That to be like, wow, why in the world would that be your favorite wrestler? Well, I was a kid, and he was the local villain, in around town.
Yeah.
And
I think I remember from the Ric Flair documentary. Didn't Ric Flair base a lot of his character on Playboy Buddy Rose?
Let's see. He was enamored with. There was Buddy Roberts, like the first WWF champ growing up. Yeah, because he and Buddy Rose had been around like the same time, I think. But it was Buddy Roberts. I think was his predecessor. But I was obsessed with it and all the WWF as it was stuff. Growing up as a kid, I was obsessed with it. And then my co-writer Matt, he's about 7 years younger than me, so he kind of went through a different stage. He kind of went through the '90s and the Attitude Era. So between the two of us, there was a pretty big overlap of wrestling fandom. Neither one of us was really like actively watching it today, but I like to keep up with it and what's going on through like social media and stuff like that. But I love wrestling. I mean, for me, it really was a huge escape. When I was young enough to think I was young. I found it maybe at like 7 years old or 8 years old, flipping channels.
Okay.
There was no part of me as a kid that thought it was scripted or choreographed or anything. I just thought this was real combat, and it was real blood. The blood was real, and it was. My first impression of it was that it was just good versus evil, and these guys they really were like superheroes. It was just they could do things that mere mortals could not, and so they had me hook, line, and sinker. And even as I got older, I still loved and appreciated it, and I have a lot of fondness for the wrestling of my youth, and that's kind of how this book came about. Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia is both Matt and I. Looking back at it, we still love and appreciate all the entertainment it gave us, and we appreciate, how good it could be, how ridiculous it could be, and even how bad it could be at times. We just love it, for being a dear companion to us. And there's nothing like it, right? It's because when you have that, sports is great. Like we watch, basketball and baseball because we don't know what's going to happen. We really don't. We watch good movies and good television because we know it's a performance, but we know we're going to be like thoroughly entertained. And wrestling for a time had this best of both worlds where you thought it was a sport. And if you could suspend disbelief, or if you were a kid, you had no idea what was going to happen. It was unpredictable, but it was also highly underneath the surface, scripted enough to be highly entertaining most of the time. And in that sense, that made it some of the best theater in the world, for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
Still is.
And cultural critics will say, America's two greatest artistic contributions are jazz, a la rock and roll, which I consider one thing. Number two is comic books. And I think probably wrestling may be one of the best native, I can't say it's purely American, it's probably North American because the Mexican and Canadian influences are so big, but it's probably the third leg of that stool when it comes to unique cultural contribution to art that the rest of the world, didn't know about until we made it here. So
I think it's fairly uniquely American in that, like, it came from the circus. So obviously you had circuses in Europe, and then you had circuses in America. But out of the American circus came these strongman contests and, arm wrestling. And the circus, promoters found out, like, if you can script who's going to win the powerlifting contest or the boxing contest or the wrestling contest, if you can decide ahead of time who's going to win and who's going to lose, you can make a lot of money off gambling. So now it may have been like Mexico may have done this sort of in parallel, right? Because they may have had their own circuses and their own wrestling coming out of that. But that's why, like in the early days of wrestling, you still had people like wrestling kangaroos and bears and
bears, yes.
And people, wrestlers with dwarfism were always a big part of pro wrestling. And that's because they were always part of the circus, and they were always part of that. They were always part of, that's how they were always part of wrestling is from the circus. And same thing with like, used to be like the fat man of the circus kind of became the fat man sort of the wrestling ring. Like Happy Humphrey was this wrestler back in the, 60s, 50s and 60s. And he weighed like 600 pounds and he just couldn't do much, but they get him in the ring and he'd entertain. So and then how it became popular in Japan really was like there was one guy who saw it in America and he was like, "This is amazing! I have to do this in Japan." And so Japan got an NWA franchise, and things took off from there. So it is, I think. I mean, I could be wrong. I'll be happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it's a fairly uniquely American phenomenon, perhaps American/Mexican phenomenon.
I included Canada in there because I know the
Canada,
Canada. Maybe not so much. Right. Yeah, it probably filtered down to Mexico later with the luchadors, but I know Canada. The upper Midwest.
It's a hotbed for
was a big big crossover. Roddy Piper, all the famous. And I never really realized it came from the circus, but one of the things you pay homage to, and one of the things I learned about watching a Netflix series on the Mid Ohio Valley wrestling is the whole carny speak that wrestlers have. They have their own lingo, and that makes sense that it comes straight from the circus. Your baby faces, heels, heat, doing business, doing a jobber, kayfabe. All their, like, if they start speaking and they don't know what they're talking about, it really sounds like carny speak.
And it also the secretiveness, like the carny culture is very somewhat isolated. You kind of keep to yourself. You kind of, it's somewhat insular and isolated. You don't talk to the police. You don't trust, local politicians. You don't socialize much with normies. You sort of keep it in the circus, and with wrestlers, them keeping kayfabe, that was a big part of their thing too. They tended to kind of hang out with each other and take care of their own, take care of their own dirty laundry by themselves, right? Like you didn't go talking too much to reporters or the police or normal people.
Right. That, and keeping industry secrets too. I mean, that's kind of like gone the way of, the dodo or whatever, but but for a long time, until recently, no one would even acknowledge that, that it was scripted and.
Well, it even used to be apparently promoter Bill Watts. And I think he covered somewhere in the South, maybe like Oklahoma. And
that was my growing up in the Mid-South. Bill Watts.
Mid-South. So he had a thing like if one of his wrestlers was at like a bar and some guy were to walk up and be like, "Oh, you wrestlers think you're so tough. And I know it's fake. You're not really that tough." Bill Watts was like, "Not only must you fight that guy, you must win. You must beat the toenails off somebody who says to you wrestling is fake. And if you don't start a fight, or if you start a fight and you lose, you're out of my territory. I don't want to, you're fired basically." So it was serious, right?
Right. And jumping back to Roddy Piper, there was that time in the 80s where he helped a woman whose purse was stolen or she was mugged. And he made sure that to tell them that they couldn't reveal that it was him. He didn't want to take any credit for it because he had his character, because it was, I think it might have been just before around Wrestlemania 1. So he had to keep that heel persona intact, because
it was
obviously it was, it was all for the business at that point.
It was a big deal. I've taken the book again. It's Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. And I should probably say just something about what it's about. It's it's like how you described it basically, but it's a wrestler named Rock and Roll Rory Landell, who is a heel, And we start off in kind of the 80s, and so he's kind of a heel in the mode of like superstar Billy Graham, Jesse Ventura, maybe a little bit of Randy Savage. But he finds out his promoter is going to renege on his promise to make him world champion. So when he goes to cut his live interview or do his promo, he says, "Fine, I don't care about the world belt. I am the galactic champion of the universe. The world belts just means nothing to me." Well, of course, the TV signal goes to outer space. It's intercepted eventually by the Planet Wrestletopia. They're not amused. They have their own galactic champion, and hence the invasion. So it's obviously a comedy action, and we're really, really proud of it. It's a bit of a love letter and homage also to the wrestling of our youths. But I take the book around to sort of a couple local wrestling indie shows around Portland, and even they had a like a mini convention, for like Pacific Northwest Wrestling, like Fan Con. And I talked to there's this guy called his name happens also to be Ed, but he was the Grappler back in the day. He was a masked wrestler known as the Grappler, and he wrestled Piper, wrestled with Piper, and all this stuff. So I was at my table's next to his, so I started asking him, about the old days, and he was telling me some pretty fun Piper stories. He had said like, yeah, one day Piper got on, Portland Wrestling, and he says he's going to offer $1,000 to anyone who can get a picture of me without my mask on. And he's like, I had people following me around town. I had people trying to drive me off the road. He's like, I grabbed Piper and I said, you better find someone just to give that money to on camera and tell them the bounty's been claimed because I can't even take my kids to school. That's
oh, no.
Apparently Piper just liked to screw with the Grappler. Because the other story he told, I guess Roddy Piper had a transmission shop around Portland it was called Piper's Pit Stop.
Oh, interesting.
And according to the Grappler, Piper used some of Vince McMahon's like airtime on like national television to promote his body shop or his transmission shop. And in this spot, Piper says that anyone who can find and then body slam the Grappler will get a free transmission repair. This guy was like, I had one guy really try to do it. One guy really tried. Like, so, apparently, Piper just liked to screw with the Grappler. He was pretty good at it.
Yeah, so. It seems like a lot of Piper's character was part of his true personality then, because it seems pretty easy for him to play the role. That's funny.
Yeah, he was a great one for those kind of pranks and things. So anyway, the book is the entire story arc. We had released it as initially as 6 single issues, but the whole story is collected in this trade we put into print, Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, and we're really, really happy, how it turned out, and we had professional artists do the whole thing, and it's got a great reception. I've been able to put it into about 30 comic book stores, and it's actually sold pretty well. I've had every comic book store has a few wrestling fans, so it has. I've even had a couple. I've done a couple of restocks, and so far so good. We we're really trying to get it out there. We think that although it helps to be a wrestling fan, but one thing we have heard a lot of is you don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy this book. It's kind of like Galaxy Quest meets wrestling, is how one reviewer.
That's a good description of it.
Yeah, I can see
that. Yeah, and so it's a guarantee. It's an almost guaranteed fun time for comic book fans and wrestling fans alike.
It's a fun yarn, is what my dad would call it. Yeah, At no point is it. When I read it, did it in a couple of days, sitting just quickly, didn't want to put it down because it was enjoyable the whole time. And like
Great.
you hit all the, there's an Easter egg hunt if you were a fan of wrestling over the years. And I didn't know if you had a big murder board of checklists that you were like, okay, we got to make sure we hit this, got to make sure we hit this. And like little things, like the only thing that disappointed me is there's in one of the opening things when the Planetopian and the Wrestletopians invade, there's an Egypt and there's a guy wrestling on a camel, but he doesn't have the camel and a camel clutch.
Right, he gives him the angle slam instead.
I was like, why is he got? I looked immediately because immediately I saw Egypt and I was like, oh, there's got to be a camel in here. Yeah. Someone's got to be giving my camel clutch, and no, no camel clutch was being given.
So but if I would have thought of that, or someone had given me that suggestion, that's definitely what we would have done. We didn't, missed opportunity.
But you have tons of them, and K-Mag documented all, like opening up with a bear wrestling.
Awesome.
Great, great classic. One of my favorite things of all time is I still think I can wrestle a bear myself.
You got on your bear shirt.
I got my bear shirt, my bear gear.
Don't
always one of my favorites. So yeah. But no, just down, you have, a reference to Tulsa. That was the Mid-South. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bill Watts. And you got a cowboy in there that I assume was kind of based on him.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even kind of a bit like JR. I think JR is from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Definitely that archetype, right? And yeah, he was, in our book, James, Mangrum, I think is his name. He's like a promoter / ex-wrestler. So that it definitely drew some inspiration from Bill Watts. Almost every wrestler in the book draws a little inspiration from one or more wrestlers, if not, wrestling sort of archetypes. We've got sort of the androgynous. There's a villain who has sort of an androgynous look, which is definitely an homage to like Adrian Street,
Gold Dust.
Gold Dust.
Gold
yeah,
Dust.
Actually, Gold Dust is
Adrian Adonis.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, the main character, rock and roll, Rory Landell, is very superstar. Billy Graham was really probably maybe the biggest influence, but definitely there's probably a little Randy Savage in there, and
with the speech pattern, definitely the way he rips, and you had to go along with the ring announcer. You had a guy that looked kind of like Jesse Ventura when he was doing his ring announcing.
Yes,
I definitely saw that. And,
there's the heel and the heel announcer and sort of the straight man, and it was like Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura.
Right. Those were the voices that were in my head when I was reading those.
Yeah.
It was good. It was really good.
One of my favorite things we did, and it's only in the single issues, it's not in the trade. We want to give like a little incentive for people to maybe all check out the single issues, but we do a little bonus material in each one, and there's a great one of the really fun things we did was we had the heel announcer do like a question and answer like mailbag,
Oh, neat.
and he's like really rude to all the fans writing him questions, and then for the straight-laced announcer, he does a back and forth with a different heel, and it's like a magazine interview where they just do like a back and forth and they're like sniping at each other. It's like those old wrestling magazines that I used to be, I used to buy every wrestling magazine every week, every month, and they're really, really fun. So it's the 6 issues, single issues are really only available digitally, like on Amazon or iBooks, but if someone's really into Wrestletopia, it may be worth checking out for the bonus material alone.
Okay. So how did you and Matt come together as writing partners?
Yeah, so our day job is writing for video games, and
oh, good. I wanted to get into this too. Did you know about this yet?
The video game stuff.
I did not.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So
what's the most recent thing you've written on?
The most recent thing I've written on that has been released, I actually worked on the Deadpool VR game released by Meta and Marvel. And so it's fairly recent, and that did pretty well. It was really, really, really fun to work on. And I want to say that's probably the biggest, most recent game I've worked on. That some people may recognize, or everybody knows Deadpool. So I started in 2002 in the video game industry, and Matt started just a couple years after. So we started working together at the same studio, sitting right next to each other, mostly, doing game design and writing, doing a lot of writing together for this big Leisure Suit Larry game that came out, Leisure Suit Larry Magna Cum Laude. It came out like 2005.
I beat Leisure Suit Larry 1 and 2 as a child, yes.
Okay, yeah. So this came much later.
With my father not knowing, yes, I snuck in. And
you passed the age verification quiz.
Yeah.
Who's the president?
Yeah.
So we got to know each other, and we realized we really liked working with each other. We have worked together on many video game projects since, as like freelancers, and we have done a few other things. We worked on a screenplay for a comedy horror film called Lumberjack Man.
Has that movie come out?
It's been out for a long time. Yeah, it was an indie horror film, comedy horror.
Okay, Yuck.
And
Yuck, this guy, tell him about your October tradition.
So every October, I try to watch at least 31 horror movies for 31 days of Halloween. I have not gotten around to, and I usually have a theme. Last year was pirate horror or horror movies.
Okay.
But I have not gotten around to a lumberjack.
So Lumberjack Man, I have to give props to the director and the guy who really came up with the original idea, Josh Baer. He ran the studio Twisted Pixel Games, which actually made the Deadpool VR game, which Meta just closed down. They just closed it down like in March, I think, or February, unfortunately. But Lumberjack Man it's a movie about an undead lumberjack who was murdered for his pancake recipe. And every so often
does this movie feature maple syrup?
Kind of.
Okay, this is hitting all the spots for Yuck.
It's all the spots.
He comes back from the dead every so often to get revenge. And he drags behind him a giant griddle on a chain with a stack of enormous pancakes on it. And when he kills somebody, he drenches the pancakes in their blood and eats some of the pancake. And the deal is, if he finishes the pancake, he'll become like more powerful than anyone could imagine. So the goal is they have to, you got to stop him before he can complete the ceremony of eating his delicious giant fluffy pancakes soaked in blood. It was really, really fun, really, really fun, really well done. It's Josh's first film, but the production values are really good. The effects are really good. You may find it funny. It does take place too at a camp. So if you do a camp themed month, that could fit.
I was thinking blue collar jobs. You have the toolbox murders. You have My Bloody Valentine with miners. There was. I did watch In a Violent Nature last year, and that had a lumberjack type.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So my co-writer was urging me to watch that film for a couple of reasons. We're working on our next comic book, which is is a horror comedy, but we really want it to be a horror comedy. We don't want it just to be a comedy. We want it to really. So he was urging me to give that film a watch, which I haven't done yet. But
interesting film, POV horror movie from the killer's point of view.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So maybe Lumberjack Man might fit next month, next Halloween. Yep. Who knows? Next
I'm thinking blue collar jobs. I can get in. I can get it in.
Nice.
But yeah, so our day job is still writing for video games, and but we have worked together since the early 2000s, really. And when we we just sort of came up. I mean, we both fans of wrestling, both, like I said, really appreciate the sillier aspects of it as well. And so we, I had this idea of the basic idea of like, well, what if a wrestler, it wants to like diss the world belt, and he's angry because he's not champ, so he's like, the world belt's garbage. It means nothing because I am declaring myself galactic champion of the entire universe. And then that boast were to go out in space and be intercepted by a planet for which maybe wrestling is their whole way of life. Like they're really threatened by this, and it just kind of took off from there. And he and I just developing the story, writing the scripts. We found artists. We wanted, we had professional artists do the art based off our scripts, and released, like I said, the single issues digitally. But then we self-published the trade, and we have a whole bunch of print copies available for sale on our website and a bunch of other places. So it was a very indie effort, but we really, we had a blast working on it. And I think, I told Matt, I'm like, even if this doesn't go anywhere, I gotta put the story out into the world. Like, we loved the story so much, the concept. We just thought it was ridiculous, and we had to do it. And like I said, we're really happy with the way it turned out. Hopefully, we can sell some more copies so we can work on our next thing. But we're having a blast, with comics. It's really, really fun.
Cool. Yeah, that's the most important part. If you enjoy what you're doing and you have a story that you need to tell, and you have a way to get it told. Let me ask you this. So something that I saw that I want to verify before I ask you, but are you a former contributor to The Onion?
Yeah,
because we're huge Onion fans forever, right, Yek?
Indeed.
I got into that. It was really cool because there was a time when I had been laid off from my first game studio, and I was doing a little bit of freelancing for game writing and narrative design, but not much. And I really didn't think like it could be a full-time job being a freelancer. So I moved back to Portland with my wife and kids in tow. And then I just happened to see like The Onion was doing, was hiring freelance contributors, and you had to take like a writing test. So I took it, and I got on, and it gave me so much confidence. I was like, oh God, it really paid almost nothing, but it gave me so much confidence. And it taught me a lot. And it was a long time ago now, but it was really, really fun. I would have kept doing it. And then I got so busy writing for games as a freelancer, which is great. And I loved The Onion, but it was time intensive and just didn't hardly pay anything.
Yeah. So would we have heard of any of your contributions? Did they even break through?
There were 2 videos. So what they were trying to do at that time, it was kick off the Onion News Network. So it's like their parody of CNN.
Yep.
And that was new at the time. And so I was helping. Yeah, so I was helping to come up with the concepts for little news videos, which as a freelance contributor was a little more difficult. Like they had a staff, an in-house staff. But yeah, I got a couple through. And one of them was, this was 16 years ago, according to YouTube. The U.S. is condemned for preemptive use of Hillary Clinton against Pakistan. So
nice.
The idea being that like using a bomb would have been more humane, and it turned out. I think it turned out really well. There's another one where the joke was like, old poverty is being like really snobbish to the nouveau poor. So it was like this revert, think at the time the economy was pretty bad. So there was this like, it was this, 180 bizarro take on new money versus old money was, new poverty versus the old poor. And social commentary on America's declining fortunes, I suppose. But and then beyond that, it's just like a lot of little jokes that would make it that weren't like the main focus of a bit, but were used. And it was really cool. They actually used my name in another. Like I had nothing to do with this video, but they had a video with a fake U.S. treasurer. And they called him Ed Kuehnel. I love that. I forget about that sometimes, but my name is used as a character, and it was a really great experience. I love The Onion too. I sometimes wish I could get do that again, and I'm really grateful actually for that experience. It really helped me. It really helped me give me some confidence and say, well, maybe I can do this, full time as a freelancer. And that's what happened.
Nice.
What's your favorite part about this comic book that you wrote that you're like, when you started out writing it, you didn't expect to include something and you're like, oh, I gotta get that in there. That's something I'm just.
So I don't want to spoil the ending, but Matt, we had a specific ending in mind, and it was the one that was probably pretty obvious to start. And then it was actually Matt who was like, what if we didn't do that? What if it was sort of the opposite? What if we did exactly opposite of what we intended to do all along? And
that's swerving yourself. Nice,
right? It's like, at first you're like, what do you mean? And then I was like, you know what? That's actually pretty brilliant. Mini Macho was just going to be like this brief, just sort of had this brief cameo at the beginning, and we ended up just loving the character, and the people attached to the project seemed to love that character, and we're like, okay, we got to work Mini Macho in here. We got to keep him around. There's some specific jokes where I feel like I can brag on them because they're Matt's jokes, so I'm not like laughing at my own jokes or patting myself on the back as much as I am Matt. But there's this one part where it's the opening stinger to this pay-per-view, Galacto Massacre, where Rock and Roll Rory Landell is going to wrestle Manifest Destiny, Galactic Champion versus Galactic Champion, to decide the entire fate of Earth on a pay-per-view. And there's this, the pay-per-view starts and there's this opening stinger, and you're looking at the stars and somebody's narrating and he says, Copernicus, Galileo, they often look to the stars and ask themselves, is there life out there? And can it wrestle? And I just I read that joke, and it's Matt's joke, and maybe I'm not doing it justice, but I just like, oh my God, that is so brilliant. That just cracks me up every single time. There's a scene too where like kind of the UN has an emergency meeting to decide what to do because the planet's been invaded by wrestlers and no one can find Rock and Roll Rory Landell. So they're like, all right, well, maybe we can find some other wrestlers, but every nation thinks that like they're
the best wrestlers,
the best. Or like Canada's like, we could get the French Canadian connection. They'll save the planet. And,
so was that the Rougeau brothers? Is that who that is?
Yeah. It's like,
all right, good. That's what I
like an archetype. And of course, there's the Iraqi delegation and the Russian delegation that think
this Volkov and Sheik.
Yeah, they're the best. They can save the planet, and it's so ridiculous because it's just but wrestling was great theater, but it can also just be so absurd that I just feel like so much of what is hilarious about wrestling is when they weren't trying to be funny, right? Like the Shockmaster, for those of you familiar, they weren't trying to be funny. when the Shockmaster bursts through a wall and falls on his face and his helmet falls off on live TV. Like, they were trying to make us laugh, but it is the funniest damn thing. And you just can't
when you have a spray painted stormtrooper helmet, you would think that they were actually trying to make you laugh, but they weren't. It's that's one of the funniest things ever.
The one thing I was going to say, found reading this is that the only part that was not unironic was, if this fate were to happen to the Earth, this is exactly how a wrestling promoter would react.
Yeah, right.
Oh, for sure.
They, out of everyone else, would be freaking out, but no, the wrestling promoter would eventually be, how can we get this pay-per-view? How can we get the best matchups and the pre-matchups? How can we get this booked?
Yeah, how can I screw my talent?
Like literally, if the aliens came to Earth, they would use the term, can we do some business? Yeah, we can do some business.
Yeah, I love, that's also, we had the scene kind of fleshed out, but Matt really added the final dialogue. But there's the great scene where this promoter is basically being choked to death by Wrestletopians, demanding to know where Rock and Roll Rory Landell is, and he uses the opportunity to negotiate pay-per-view rights, when he's being like throttled to death. And I love that part too. It's like you said, it's like, imagine if the fate of the planet, depended on the wrestling industry. This is probably what you get.
Really, I do not doubt that certain famous people that are promoters, that's exactly the way they would react. Okay, wait. Do this.
Yeah, one thing I love that I thought was really creative is I love that you had a dream sequence and you had it during the part where he was being put to sleep in a sleeper hold. I was like, that's perfect. That's like, that's just the best.
I like that a lot too, and it gives a nice break in the action. But it was like this perfect way for Rory to kind of have some last words with somebody really important to him. And I forget how that came about, but I also I love that part, because it actually gets, I mean, this may sound silly, but it gets me a little choked up sometimes to read it. Like, it's an action comedy. It's not, doesn't get super emotional, but that's an emotional scene too. And I really, I'll admit it gets me a little tiny bit choked up. So when I've had a few of these IPAs and I go and read the book, which isn't often, but that's another great scene.
So the Wrestletopians, they're obviously all heels, and I couldn't decide.
That's a good point.
Whether they were more NWO or more Generation X, Degeneration X.
Oh,
and then there is a some face turning in there that maybe one group is more like the other or not, but not to spoil the comic review. But I could.
I did love how there was like there were face turns and heels becoming even more heelish. So it was, and especially, not to spoil the end, but like in the last scene, there's some flipping of sides, but
some double crossing, right?
In the classic WWF formation where you had the top card, babyface and heels, but then you had different factions with the different tag teams and groups, and they'd all kind of come together, but they weren't always in alignment. If they were wrestling against each other or not. Yeah, they're very much similar with the Wrestletopians. Like that, it's not like planets or countries. It's more, the wrestling factions amongst themselves. Like the domination, Nation of Domination, or Ted or Jim Cornette's team, of the Hearts,
the stable, the stable.
Four Horsemen.
We definitely drew a little inspiration from the NWO for part of the story. I think the Wrestletopians come off as heels because it's kind of like Planet Earth is the baby face, and Wrestletopia are the heels, and they're invading us, But I think, we imagined, like we kind of thought about like, well, we our next thing won't be Wrestletopia, but we do I think, if we can, would like to come back to Wrestletopia at some point. And we talked about like, what would would it be like to do a story on Wrestletopia? And so we imagine like there's all kinds of heels and baby faces, and it just within the planet, right? It is just, instead of like voting for president, people wrestle for office, and
you wrestle for the belt. So the line of succession goes heavyweight, then intercontinental, and then television, right? And then some of the tag teams.
You'd have like it's just like in wrestling, right? You had a world champion, intercontinental, then you had a U.S. champion, and then the territory, like we had a Pacific Northwest champion. So they'll be like your governor is the Florida champion. It's easy. It might work out better than what we have now. Actually, we should
pretty clear rules.
Yeah. Most things would work out better than what we have now.
And you did do an homage to the cage match by putting Earth in a cage.
I love that
too. We had. Were there any unique Pacific Northwest matches that you remember that were unique, like a cage match? Or
what stands out to you from the Pacific Northwest that you think characterizes that region?
Portland was, I think we had a few cage matches, but mostly it was, these old territories really had one ring. They had maybe one camera, maybe two. And then you usually had a separate area called like in our case, it was called the Crow's Nest, where wrestlers would cut promos and whatever. They kept it very simple, but I don't, Portland wrestling was great. It still has a lot of diehard, fans that are nostalgic for it. I guess one thing I can remember was we had a sponsor for a long time called Tom Peterson, and he was like the appliance king of Portland, right? And he'd do all his own commercials, but he was a sponsor. So like every Saturday night he'd be at the Portland the wrestling arena. And he had a little section off next to the Crow's Nest where he would have his like appliances and TVs and stuff, so that like maybe once or twice during the show, they would put the camera on him and he'd be like, I got this Zenith Trinitron black and white 29-inch TV, only $199 at Tom Peterson's. And he'd be hawking all his stuff. Well, every once in a while, and this was so awesome, like, let's say like Bobby the Hangman Jaggers, who was a babyface, would be talking to Don Koss, the announcer, and he'd be on the mic. And then all of a sudden a heel would come up to confront him, like let's say Mean Mike Miller, right? And then all of a sudden they started to be going at it, and then they started like punching each other. I'm like, oh my, the announcer was like, oh my gosh, we need to get some people up here to break this up. Then they would fight, and they'd be over into the appliances. And Bobby Jagger would like slam Mean Mike Miller's head into like a toaster oven. And Don Koss would be like, oh my goodness, Bobby Jagger's just slammed Mean Mike Miller's head into that Gold Star toaster oven that's only $129.99 now at Tom Peterson's. Oh my gosh, Mean Mike Miller just picked up that, picked up that laser disc player and slammed Bobby Jaggers on the head. Now that's $299. If you come down to Tom Peterson's with a coupon, you can get it for just $299. Get a free laser disc with your purchase. Oh my gosh! So they would be like promoting the appliances while they fought, and you're just like, oh man, this is
funny. Kind of like a precursor to the hardcore wrestling too.
Yeah, right.
In a way,
but it was
right?
To sell appliances. Yeah. It was like The Price is Right meets,
the kitchen sink match.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was just like the greatest, and part of this is on YouTube, not the whole thing, but part of it was like we had some great heels, and probably the biggest star to ever come out of Portland, who's in jail right now for murder, Billy Jack Haynes. Okay. So he described himself as like the Hulk Hogan of the Pacific Northwest, and he wasn't totally wrong. Like he was so popular. He came from Oregon, and he's Billy Jack Haynes, and he's wrestling, and he's a babyface, but then he would leave to go wrestle nationally or whatever. But there's this one episode of Portland wrestling happened right before Christmas, you tune in, and the whole arena is decorated for Christmas, and they even had like a Santa Claus who's walking around handing out candy canes to kids, and then they're wrestling, and then finally Billy Jack Haynes comes out, and for the main event, and everyone's just going nuts because it's the return of Billy Jack Haynes, or most, the Oregon's own, most popular wrestler, and he's beating up some bum, and everyone's just, everyone's cheering, going crazy. And then all of a sudden, the announcer, Don Koss, he's like, well, wait a second, ladies and gentlemen, Santa Claus just climbed the top turnbuckle. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Santa Claus just pulled a tire iron out of his jacket. Oh my God, Santa Claus just jumped off the top turnbuckle and hit Billy Jack Haynes with a tire iron. Oh my God. And then Santa Claus is like beating Billy Jack Haynes, right, with a tire iron. Billy Jack Haynes is covered in his own blood. Santa Claus comes up to the crow's nest and he pulls off his beard and his hat, and it's Rip the Crippler Oliver. Like it's the return of this heel that also we had seen in Portland for a while, and he was a great heel, and he was really popular, really hated in Portland. And so he's ranting, and he's still got the Santa jacket on, Santa coat, and he's like ranting and raving into the microphone and laughing, and he just takes off. Don Koss, the announcer, he looks right into the camera and he says, ladies and gentlemen, not only is Rip the Crippler Oliver an insult to the sport of wrestling, he is an insult to Santa Claus and the spirit of Christmas itself.
That's funny.
Right? And it's the best television. It's just the best TV. So it was like moments like that just made you fall in love with Portland wrestling. But it was a ring, 2 cameras, an announcer in a bad rent-a-tux, and then the wrestlers would go to work, to tell stories and entertain. And you just loved them, right? Like, just like you loved your local baseball team or your local football team or whatever.
And learning wrestling was fake was akin to learning Santa Claus was not real when you're a kid.
And I was probably I looked it up. I was like 14. So I certainly had an idea that Santa Claus was not real. I was probably probably in denial, but I probably knew that wrestling was more entertainment than anything else at that point.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah, sorry. Never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't say
we're talking.
Wait.
Santa Claus is real. Santa Claus is real.
Santa's real. Yeah, he's real.
So,
it's still real to me. Damn it.
Life or death. You could put in the figure 4. It hurts.
It does.
It's true. That's true.
It is true. I remember Billy Jack Haynes briefly in the WWF too. I remember he had a short feud with Macho Man. Macho Man was probably my favorite growing up.
Oh yeah, he was awesome.
I remember he was one of those guys who was like in and out. But
supposedly Billy Jack Haynes could never get out of his own way. Like he had, he probably could have been a much bigger star, but I guess even in the WWF, as it was known at the time, the rumors are at least that he was just a horrible distraction, like doing lots of drugs and cocaine and just partying a lot and really difficult to work with. And he supposedly, even before then, he never stayed in one territory long outside of Portland because he just would go somewhere and he was just super difficult. And now he's in jail, awaiting trial for he's been accused.
I just read this on
allegedly,
Wikipedia.
Yeah, murdering his wife.
At 71.
Wow.
Years ago, he's 72 right now. So this happened in 2024. And
not that long ago. He was just declared sane enough to stand trial. Like he was just like competent enough to stand trial for the alleged murder of his wife. But I mean, back in the day, he was a super. So I saw him every once in a while. Don Owens, the promoter, who was like 120 years old when I was a kid, would put together a super card, and they'd go to the Memorial Coliseum where the Portland Trailblazers used to play. It's like 13,000 seats, he'd sell it out because he'd bring in Ric Flair and Rick Martel, who was AWA champ at the time, and
the model,
all these other people. The super card. But Ric Flair when Flair would come to town, he'd wrestle Billy Jack Haynes, and everybody wanted to see. He was our again local hometown hero. We wanted to see him beat Ric Flair, and he was hugely popular up here in Portland. But just a very troubled guy, obviously.
And so, what is the?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say you, despite being a fun, free for all comic, you do cover this as a road trip at points in the comic, and you do highlight some of the dark sides, the travails.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, growing up in Oklahoma and Tulsa, my family had a rental home, and it was up for rent, and the lady came over to rent it and look at it and rent it. She was the local announcer for the WWF at the time, regional announcer, wow. And she was looking to rent. So we got free tickets. She just came and she's like, "Hey,
that's awesome!"
And she's like, "Hey, well, I'll get." She's just looking at, but she's like, "There's a great location. I can fly anywhere, travel on the bus anywhere, and to get to do the local re-announcing, and within in the Midwest and in the Lower South." But she's like, "Hey, you guys want free tickets?" Because I just went with my mom to show the house with her. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "Well, who are your favorite wrestlers?" I say, "Oh, I love X and X and Y and Y." And she goes, "Well, they're not on the road right now with us. They got caught doing some things they shouldn't have been doing." And they're both kind of alive right now, so I don't want to call them out. But yeah, it's just that dark side, like the Carney, traveling. But yeah, it's pretty clear that they got caught doing probably coke, or something like that. Probably, or maybe marijuana. But it wasn't. This is back in the day. Marijuana's bad. So, but yeah, it she was very nonchalant. She's like, "Yeah, they won't be at the show tonight because we."
I mean,
we got to go backstage and get some signatures and stuff. So,
that is awesome. Yeah. I think back then, like, as long as you showed up for your match and you were in good enough condition to perform, I don't think they gave a shit what you did outside of that, right? Steroids, cocaine, whatever you got to do. But when you think about it, I don't want to make excuses for like criminal behavior that beyond the just taking drugs, but you're basically like a stunt man. Right. Some of these guys are on the road 300 days a year back then, just getting the tar beat out of them.
And they don't get paid if they don't perform either. At least back in those days.
And you're traveling constantly, and probably getting just thrown around and beat up twice a week or more. And how do you can't do that? You can't do that without help. You have to be taking something to kill the pain and keep yourself awake. Now I guess it's a choice, but I can't. I take a flight from Portland to like Chicago, and I need a nap. These guys are they're on the road. I think I read a story where Jim the Anvil Neidhart came back to his apartment one day to find his key didn't work, and his manager is like, "I thought you moved out a long time ago." He's like, "No, I've just been on the road working." It's like, "Oh, well, your stuff's in storage."
And they traveled like 300 days a year or something.
Yeah, and he paid his rent. It's not like he didn't pay his rent, and so he got like quietly evicted. He was like, "I just came home, and it's not my home anymore."
Jeez,
300 days a year and I've heard more than one wrestler throw that number out. That about 300 days a year spent either traveling and working, and I don't know. If it's
sometimes
now, but that's
sometimes 2 shows a day back then.
Yeah.
They describe playing, NFL linemen as going through a car crash once a week.
Yeah,
and it's probably even worse for a wrestler because you're getting picked up by another human being and thrown on what's supposedly a mat, but we all know it's plywood under the mat, right? So
chair shots and falling through tables and
and so like chair shots. Yeah, no, I've noticed they've reduced the frequency of those now. And I understand that's for a good reason. But those are my favorite things when I was growing up. I just love the chair shot. I hate to say it. Yeah.
And apparently I talked to some indie wrestlers just now since I've been out like promoting the book, and a lot of them are like, there's almost no way to make that look good at all without just really hurting yourself. It's just like, there's the chair. It's not made of rubber. It's a real steel chair. It really hurts. And there's just almost no way to do it without it really hurting you.
Sometimes you see them get their arms up in time.
Yeah.
If the person swings the chair, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's no way it doesn't do something no matter what.
Yeah. And some wrestlers don't even want to put their arm up because they think it looks weak, but they're like, you have to, or you're just going to get concussion.
Stop no selling.
Yeah, you got to sell that chair shot.
I mean, it's an insane way to make a living. I mean, I think when I was a little kid, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then I started to get an inkling of what that really meant. And I was like, no, I would not last 5 minutes on the road or in the ring. It's just leave that up to the professionals, right?
Yeah. So something we do on this show that when we have interviews, which is, I guess, the most closely associated or parallel thing to professional wrestling, is the interviewee has to go through what we call the gauntlet of questions.
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
Yeah. So we have some fast-paced, hard-hitting questions.
Five of them. This is my gimmick. This is my finishing move.
Yeah, this is his gimmick.
There are no prizes.
We all lose.
So let me tell you, Ed. So there are certain other shows where I go through the gauntlet, and I have not done very well myself. Okay. It's been a while, but I'm definitely not gauntlet champion when I'm the only one competing. So
sounds
hard.
They
cover mainly wrestling this time, all over the board. But with some deep cuts here. So you ready to start, Ed?
Well, no, but that's the whole point. Let's do it.
It's like a coal miner's glove match. We're ready to go.
That's a great Portland reference right there. It's a Portland wrestling.
Oh, I forgot about those. Oh man.
Which Greek philosopher earned his name for his ability to wrestle?
Socrates.
Close.
And his nickname was
his student,
the Slaughterer.
His student, Plato. Plato means it's not his real name. Plato was his nickname. It means broad or broad-shouldered. He was famous for being an Olympic level wrestler and also wrestling his students after he would teach them.
Pulverizing Plato.
Pulverizing Plato, just off the top rope, off the top column.
I knew it was something. I was close. I knew it was,
With the allegory of the cave bringing you home, Plato.
Yeah. I think Socrates taught him a few moves. Socrates taught him the suplex. Taught him how to suplex.
Question number 2. Who in 1848 coined the term manifest destiny for the U.S. westward expansion?
This is a really hard question, to be honest.
Andrew Jackson?
Andrew Jackson popularized it.
Wow.
To popularize it. This one, I did not know this one. I had to look it up myself because I read the comic. I was like, who came up with manifest destiny? I instantly thought of Andrew Jackson because he was the one that made the statement, this is what we want to do. It was John Lewis O'Sullivan, a journalist who later became a propagandist for the Confederacy. As you can imagine.
And I think he was also a founding editor of Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yes, for certain. Even though his greatest heel was the president he fought against, one Abraham Lincoln. I could consider that in question. Who was the best wrestler ever as president? And that is
two out of three falls.
It has to be Abe Lincoln hunted
Abe Lincoln with that
vampires.
reach.
Yeah, that reach. You know, the top hat. You know, you can put all kinds of weapons in there.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Fuji.
Yeah, you put a brick in that top hat. And
No, we didn't get into finishing moves, but my favorite finishing move, and I didn't ask you your question on what's your favorite, but my favorite finishing move of all time is the claw, by far, the Iron Claw.
Oh,
by far. Who is credited with inventing the Iron Claw? And you get bonus points if you can name inventor of other claws.
Okay, well, truthfully, I don't know that either of them invented the claw, but I guess I'd have to guess Fritz von Erich.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay.
The Iron Claw, according to online. But yeah, there are other claws. But if you had to say just the Iron Claw,
Baron von Raschke used the claw.
That uses the brain claw. There's your bonus point.
The brain claw. And then, obviously the Von Erich children, I think, most of them at one point or another used a claw, but that was from Fritz. So
yes,
I think, that's the only ones
And there's one more claw that was famous by Mankind used it, but he didn't invent it.
Right. And I think Mr. Fuji even had like a claw, but he would put it on like your shoulder. And they might have called
it the
Oriental Death Claw or something.
I forgot about that one, the face claw, there was also the mandible claw, which Mankind used.
Right.
Built by Dr. Sam Shepard, a medical professor, of course. But did you have a favorite finishing move? By far, the claw was my favorite. Figure floor is number 2. But the claw
certainly, I did. I think that, the flying elbow by Randy Savage was great.
Yeah, right? That was one of my favorites too.
And it could work on any wrestler. That was also what's great about it. No matter how big or small, you could always get a flying elbow. The one that they don't use anymore, that was great, and it's been used by. But it's been used by not that many wrestlers. It's been abandoned, but it was great. Was so in Portland we had actually Stan Stasiak. Okay. Who was a former WW, at the time WF champion. He was a transitional champ for like 1 month. He was a world champ. But he spent a lot of time wrestling in Portland. And by the time I started watching, he's like this old man. But he had a great finishing move, which was the heart punch. So he would lift his opponent's arm and punch them in the heart. And his opponent would fall on the mat and start flopping around like a fish, like he was having a heart attack.
Didn't he kill someone or allegedly kill someone with that? Was that? I think Baker, it was a story. Yeah.
Ox Baker, who also used the heart punch, was fighting, I think the guy's name, what was the guy's name? Like Bob. He was fighting some local, hero in a regional promotion. It might have been in Oklahoma, like Bob Gunkel. Anyway, he used his heart punch like he normally does, but this wrestler did have like some heart issues, and the impact. It's just like when like every once in a while a baseball player will get like a baseball to the chest.
Yeah. The safety from the Buffalo Bills recently had that.
Yeah. So the impact.
Cardiac arrest.
Yeah. The impact on this wrestler really damaged, and like he died, but he died in the hospital like 2 days later. Died. And back then, kayfabe is still a thing. So what do? They don't come out and say like, "Oh gosh, ladies and gentlemen, we are so sorry. This was not at all, intended as this is part of the show. This was an accident." Ox Baker went around and just called himself the Widowmaker. And, you know what I mean? And so yeah, he had that finishing move, the heart punch. Maybe that's why I stopped it, because it was like legit dangerous. Maybe.
I don't know why. It's a legit medical condition that you can get.
But the heart punch was pretty amazing. I love Rey Mysterio's finish. I will say it takes a little bit of setup. I think some of what was great about like the heart punch and some other finish, even the figure 4 leg lock, it can be done very quickly, so you don't expect it. Even like the claw, It's pretty cool.
Or you turn away from the turnbuckle and you're bam, it's on.
Boom,
Yeah.
like it just happens.
Like
so you're
the crippler crossface was a good one too, because he just come out of nowhere and get you in that.
Comes out of nowhere. And the other thing that was insane though was, and I George Animal Steel didn't always do this, but he had this move where he would grab an opponent's arm, twist it behind their back, right? But then lift the wrestler up.
I remember that.
By that arm off their feet. And they would always like end the match almost immediately. And the guy would be kind of bending back, to help. But could you imagine being lifted off your feet with your arm behind your back? It really was kind of, the strength it took to do that. And let's give honorable mention to Ultimate Warrior's body press, which he can't do to anybody, but it was pretty impressive. And Tony Atlas used to do that before him. Anyway, I've given you like 17 answers to your question, so I'm sorry. I derailed the we could talk all day about finishing with.
So I want to give honorable mention to one. So like the Macho Man elbow is one of my favorites, but then like talking about ones you can just pull out of anywhere, the Diamond Cutter, Diamond Dallas Page, that was one of my favorite finishers. And I guess it's now the RKO that Randy Orton does. It's the same thing pretty much.
Yeah.
For the most part. But like that one you can pull out of anywhere and just do it almost any moment. I like that.
And Jimmy Superfly Snuka, his flying body splash takes some setup, but it really was fairly like he did it so well. He used to do it off the top cage, off the top of a steel cage.
Yeah, when that happened, that was the biggest news ever. Yeah.
And but at the time, that was like, forget about it. That was, nowadays, maybe we take it for granted, but that was huge back then.
And I don't know the Instagram account name, but there's an Instagram account where a guy takes regular clips of people interacting.
Yeah.
And they, happen to be like America's Funniest Home Videos where like a kid kicks another kid and then he overplays the finishing move from the wrestler.
Yeah. And then he plays their walk-up music.
It's like a lot of them Sweet Chin music from Shawn Michaels with kids kicking by mistake kicking their brother or sister and going out and he puts her he instantly goes with the clip of
I love some Sweet Chin music too. That's a good one. Sweet Chin music.
One of my favorite YouTube videos in that genre is they show John McCain walking out onto the Senate floor and they're playing Stone Cold's entrance music.
Oh, that's awesome.
Then he votes no on a bill by going like this. And they have JR being, oh my God. It's just really, I love that genre of video. YouTube video is great.
Yeah.
All right. Back to number 4 in the gauntlet here.
Yes.
Okay. What 1989 classic starring Deep Space Nine's Claudia Christensen involved alien cage matches for Galaxy pay-per-view?
Oh.
So it's
is Roddy Piper in this movie?
What?
Is Roddy Piper in this movie?
I think he might appear in this. I gotta remember.
Let me see.
He was in a really bad sci-fi movie.
He's in Hell Comes to Frogtown. He's in They Live. By far one of the greatest actors ever.
Yes, that's a great movie. But he was in like a really bad sci-fi movie after that.
He is not in this one. Claudia Christensen is the most famous person in this one. There's a couple other bit actors. I remember because I was pumped to see it straight to video. But it involves a human wrestling an alien on pay-per-view for all the marbles.
Interesting.
Is it? Does it really? I did not know. I was not aware of that. Is it like for the fate of the planet Earth, or?
Well, it's more like WWF for the belt and everything. Or not more like MMA for all the marbles. And everything.
I'll guess Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington.
I was
close,
right there.
It was Arena where it's Washington.
Arena. Okay. I should watch it. I have not heard of it at all.
I've never heard of it either.
Similar in storyline to your comic book also. There's an amazing story
Interesting.
called Stardust, or Miss Stardust, if you've ever seen that. If you remember the Amazing Story show, Steven Spielberg,
is that animated or
no? It is live action where on planet Earth we have the Miss Stardust competition, which is like basically the Miss Universe, and the beams go to outer space, and the aliens go, "We want to compete too," so they send their own contestants to Miss Universe.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah. So that's one worth watching. Also, similar vein. Question number 5 and final one. This is get as many as you can get, but we're looking if you can at least 5. As of 1980, name 5 of the wrestling territories that existed before the WWF collapsed and all.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So there's Portland Wrestling. That's Pacific Northwest Wrestling. There's Florida like wrestling. Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was on Channel 17, Superstation, TBS.
Yeah, extra credit for stations too, for channels.
And lead promoters.
World Class Wrestling, which was Texas and like the Von Erichs and all that stuff. So I don't, I know the territories pretty well. I don't know if I know all the formal. There was like Stampede Wrestling, so that was like Calgary area.
Yep.
That was NWA.
Stu Hart's.
Sure.
Oh, sorry,
yes. I'm just trying to think. I can know the territories.
They're all kind of affiliate. There are a lot. I'll give you credit if you go NWA once, but they're all affiliates. There are multiple affiliates of NWA.
They're all right. They're all. I'm trying to think of the specific territories.
And then we mentioned a couple more on this show today, also. So
yeah. So I know what they are. I'm just want to make sure I get try to get the formal name of it. Yeah. I think also
you've gotten 4 so far.
Yes. I mean, there was one in San Francisco. There was Oklahoma. So Bill Watts. What was his? There was Louisiana, which was considered like deep south, and
it was Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana were all Bill Watts' territories. We mentioned the name of that one.
Bill Watts, yeah. I mean, was it deep south wrestling,
and there was the one up in the little famous little guy that we'll give you credit for it, the New York Madison Square Garden one.
Yeah. I mean, there was WF, which was.
We'll give him credit. He got to 5.
Okay, AWA. I mean, what my understanding is that they were all part of this conglomerate, starting with immediately after World War II, right? They were all NWA territory, National Wrestling Alliance. Around 1960, Vern Gagne was like, I want to be my own thing. I'm still going to collaborate with you on talent. I'm still going to respect the territories, but I want to be I'm going to be the AWA, and I want my own world champ. I'm not going to recognize Harley Race or Luthez. I want my own thing. But he was still part of the oligarchy, right?
Yeah.
And then Vince McMahon Sr. was the same way. He's like, I'm Madison Square Garden. I'm just going to respect the territories. I'm going to share talent with you. I'm going to be on the board, but I'm going to be Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and I'm having my own world champ because I'm New York. I'm Madison Square Garden. I can pull it off. So they really were part of the same organization. They just had some different branding, and they wanted their own world champ. But that's why, like when I went to a super card at the Memorial Coliseum in Portland in the 80s, what was on the card was Ric Flair against Billy Jack Haynes for the NWA World Championship. The same card, Rick Martel, AWA champion, against Mean Mike Miller, local guy, for the belt. Same card, because they were all part of the same, loose organization. They just had some branding issues. And it wasn't until Vince McMahon Jr. took over the WE that it all started to fall apart and crack. But
he didn't care about those past handshake agreements.
Yeah.
Which is always the weirdest one, that wrestling achieved its golden age once the structure collapse. Whether that was good or bad, I don't know. But yeah, that's where we live.
It's probably inevitable. It's just probably inevitable.
Yeah,
and the
Walmartization of wrestling, and then now we have you had your WCW, and then now you're at AW. What's the AEW?
AEW,
yeah. And so Vince McMahon Sr. apparently for a long time was the booker in charge of Andre the Giant, but all the other promoters were like, you need to share the Giant. We all want the Giant to show up in our territories at some point. We don't need him to stay forever. But like Andre the Giant would come out to Portland every once in a while and wrestle in Portland. He'd show up in Japan. He'd show up everywhere. Vince McMahon, he was technically Vince McMahon Sr.'s guy, but Vince McMahon Sr. would share him with the AWA, would share him with NWA, would share him with Japan. Well, share him all over the place. So there was, it was all kind of part of the same deal. So that's why I think that AWA is a legit answer to your question. That's where I'm getting to.
AWA, sure. It's one of the big ones. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the names of the territory promoters at the time, it's the who's who. Stu Hart, Vern Gagne, Dory Funk Sr., so Fritz von Erich, Joe Blanchard. These are all people that begat famous wrestlers that we know. Jimmy Crockett,
right. Eddie Graham in Florida.
All you got your 5 though. You got it.
So I think I got 2 questions right because I got the claw.
Yes. You get bonus points for the double claws. Yeah. So
and you got half credit for Manifest Destiny.
I was pretty close with Philadelphia. He's similar films.
On a curve. You get a C.
That's me. Yeah, C's get degrees. That's my wheelhouse. C. But I'll say Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, solid A-. Come check out our website. Absolutely.
Tell the fans where they can get a copy of it.
www.suspiciousbehaviorproductions.com. I know that's long, but suspiciousbehaviorproductions.com. We have it priced really reasonably with shipping. You'll pay as much as you pay for any 200-page graphic novel. It's a high production affair. It's not on cheap binding or cheap paper. It's the art is really well done. If you like comics, wrestling, if you like to laugh, do yourself a favor and check it out on our website. It's an indie affair, so we'd love people to check out the book, and every copy we sell helps us work on our next miniseries. So
horror comedy.
What it was called, Harbingers is what it will be called. But we'll hopefully I can come back and when I have some pages done or something to show, we can
for sure
talk some more wrestling and video games. And I got something coming out that's not announced, so I can't talk about it, but it's a pretty cool deal. And on the video game front, so maybe I'd love to come back and
your Instagram and your X for that announcement.
Yeah, I gotta do. Yes, absolutely. I gotta do
the socials
job with that. With the socials, but we are semi-active on ours. So we're on every social media platform, and you people can find us everywhere pretty much. So. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to drink beer on a Sunday at noon. It's noon my time, and
anytime talk wrestling,
wrestling,
and comics. Right. We're good in beer. So
we'll have to have you back because we've barely scratched the surface of the wrestling conversations that can be had.
I think so. And I love the gauntlet questions are great. They're great questions. Next time I'll be more prepared.
Yeah, K-Mac does the adult interview, and I do the stupid interview, and that's where we kind of divide the division of labor here. So
it works. It works great. It's a great combo.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for being on, and we're gonna send you out with your walk-up music, just like you joined us.
Yes, that's the bottom.